Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Friday, May 3rd, 2019. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the latest film and TV news. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta. And joining me at today's podcast is Slash Film Managing Editor Jacob Hall.
Hello, hello.
And writer Chris Evangelista.
Hello, folks.
It is Friday. Tomorrow is May the 4th. Are either of you doing anything Star Wars related?
Not at all.
Maybe I'll jump on Twitter and say once again that The Last Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie and then spend the day getting death threats. That might be fun.
Why would you want to ruin your weekend like that, Chris? Normally I'd be doing something. I'm going to an award show for magicians, so I am doing nothing Star Wars related. But anyways, we have to start off this episode of the podcast with some sad news, something that broke yesterday, and that is that the man behind Chewbacca has died at age 74. Jacob, what do we know?
Yes, the family of actor Peter Mayhew released a statement saying that he passed away in his North Texas home on April 30th. And Peter Mayhew is best known for playing Chewbacca. He was working as an orderly in England when they needed a very tall actor to fill in the suit, and George Lucas cast him, and he spent the last couple decades returning to the part in movies and playing Chewbacca on TV specials and commercials, and more importantly, reprising the part for like charity events and working with other foundations to cheer up sick kids and raise money, and generally being a really well-respected person who is kind to his fans, kind to children, and well-liked by his co-stars and by the filmmakers involved in all Star Wars movies. And he wrote books for children about how it's important to be different and how not to bully each other. He started his own foundation to raise money to get food for families in need. And he generally used his Star Wars fame to put more good into the world than, and leave it a better place than he found it. And the family did not announce how he died, but he has been battling health issues for a long time. He's had knee surgeries and back surgeries. He had severe pneumonia a few years ago, required hospitalization. And it's not been well. And the thing that made him Chewbacca is his 7'3" height. Also, was hard on his body, especially in his later years where he was in a wheelchair and had to pass on the role of Chewbacca to another actor for the final films. And nobody who's met Peter Mayhew at a convention has ever had a negative thing to say about him. Peter, I feel like even Chewbacca, even though he's not saying words, there's so much character in his performance. Like, Chewbacca is so defined by his head tilts and the way he carries himself, and that we can't undervalue what Mayhew brought to this part.
Yeah, he's such an iconic role in these films. And you mentioned, like, the conventions. I would see him at almost every convention, and like that, that row with all the people from Battlestar Galactica and stuff, and he seemed genuinely one of the few people in that row that like wasn't just there for the money and was enjoying the interaction with all the fans. And I know he wasn't a part of the last two Star Wars films. He was replaced. I guess he was partially replaced in Force Awakens for some of the more mobile sequences. So anytime you see him sitting down in that movie, that is Peter Mayhew. But in Last Jedi, he was not in it because he, was not well enough to do it. And, it's sad. I do know, Peter Mayhew, we had a hard time finding photos for this article that we wrote up on the site because he's such a tall guy that everybody wants to shoot him in vertical. Do you know what I mean? Like, you want to do that, and that doesn't work for our site, which needs horizontal images. And almost every photo of him on set of the Star Wars films that has his mask off, he's like holding a cigarette in his hand. This is a guy that smoked like a chimney, and he lived 74. That's not bad. Chris, do you have any thoughts on the passing of Peter Mayhew?
I was unaware of all that charity work that Jacob mentioned, so that's touching to hear. I actually had no knowledge of that, so it's pretty amazing that he did all that stuff in his lifetime. And obviously it's always sad when someone iconic passes away, but 75 is a good run. Obviously he could always live longer, but at least it seems like he did have a full good life, which is more than some people can say.
Yeah, for sure. And I know we also have an article on the site that rounds up all the kind words from his co-stars from the Star Wars films, including Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, George Lucas, and more, J.J. Abrams. I'll link that in the show notes if you want to read that. But we must move on. Let's talk about John Wick Chapter 3. The first early buzz hit the web, including our own HT. Chris, you did a roundup. Is this movie as good as Chapter 1 and Chapter 2?
Apparently so. I could not find a single negative reaction. In fairness, the film has not screened for everyone yet. Like, for instance, I haven't seen it. A lot of critics I know actually haven't seen it. There were some very early screenings for junket coverage, so that might explain why there's so few negative coverage at this moment. But literally every review I found, or not review, every tweet I could find last night was not just positive, but overwhelmingly positive. Everyone says, the action is even better. The mythology is even better. There were a few people who said that it's not as good as part 2, but it's more entertaining, if you want to make sense of that. But yeah, there's not a single negative review I could find. Again, that might change once more critics see it, but as of now, it looks like John Wick Chapter 3 is definitely going to deliver if you're a fan of this franchise, which I feel like everyone is. I don't think I've ever met someone who doesn't like this franchise at least a little.
Yeah. The only time that they are not a fan of this franchise is if they haven't seen the movie.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or they're a dog lover and don't want to see the movie. Chris, I know you have a problem with animal deaths on screen. Was there ever a hesitation of not seeing John Wick?
I did have reservations, but I sucked it up and saw it. I will admit that anytime I rewatch the first movie, I fast forward the dog death scene just because I can't do it. Once was enough for me. I don't have a problem with John Wick murdering millions of people, but the minute a dog dies, I can't take it. So whenever I rewatch part 1, I fast forward that scene, and thankfully they haven't killed any dogs since. And I guess this is sort of a spoiler, but our own HT who saw the film confirmed to us that there are no dog deaths in part 3. So we're safe on that front. I'm safe going into that.
Instead, we're going to get dogs actually killing humans in this movie.
Yeah, and that's fine. I'm A-okay with that. Just don't kill the dogs.
Jacob, are you more excited for this film now?
Oh, I am thrilled. I've gone on the record about my feelings on John Wick many times, and I do agree that it's hard to watch that puppy die in part 1, but I also think that John Wick is one of the very few movies that even does it in an outlandish way, to actually have a sincere emotional reaction to a dog death and actually treat it with weight as opposed to it being an example of how scary something is. So knowing that Halle Berry's character in the new movie has a couple of dogs who apparently are trained stunt dogs who bite lots of bad guys to death, the dogs get their revenge this time, and I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about Willow. When I talked to Ron Howard for Solo Star Wars Story, he told me that something was in development. It seemed like he was not involved. Now we have learned more. It seems like it's a sequel TV series, and he might actually be involved. Jacob, what do we know?
Howard was on an interview on the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, and he talked about the Willow series that's apparently being pitched to Disney+. And even though Howard in the past, as you said, has not been connected to it, he seems to know a lot about what's going on. So I'll read a little bit of his quote here. He says, there are some really serious discussions going on with John Kasdan, who was one of the writers of Solo, who kept hounding me about Willow the whole time we were shooting, and also hounding Kathleen Kennedy. We are in discussions about developing a Willow television show for Disney+. And although there are no actual plot details, it's suggested this will be a continuation of the movie, taking place decades later and following Warwick Davis's Willow, on a new adventure 30 years after he rescued a baby, and maybe that baby will be grown up. And the fact that I'm saying a baby here and not much details suggests that I have not seen Willow in quite some time, and that's true. I haven't seen it since I was a kid. So, Peter, do you have strong feelings on Willow? Is this a universe you want to revisit? Because I know at the time, it wasn't a big hit. People didn't react to it like much at all in the 80s, but I feel like it's gotten a following since then.
I remember loving it as a kid, but I was also in love with everything that George Lucas did, or Lucasfilm was involved in back then. I haven't watched it in many years. I'm guessing it probably doesn't hold up. I would like to see them doing this. I mean, it seems like this is the take, that Warwick Davis is going to be part of it, but probably this is going to be more of a legacy equal where he like takes a back seat and it's maybe about, that grown-up baby now or his kid or something like that.
I haven't seen it in years, but I do remember liking it when I was a kid. It's one of those things that I always when I was very young, I thought it had something to do with The Hobbit because it's pretty much, a ripoff of The Hobbit. And I think it was like not till I got older that I realized they were like separate things. But I do remember when I was a kid, I did enjoy it. And I remember there being this huge cardboard standee for the movie in my local VHS store. And it was there for years, even well after the movie came out. And I would always just stare at it every time I went to the VHS store. And that's how old I am.
Do you think there's any chance of having Val Kilmer reprise his role as Mad Mardigan? He was like a swordsman in this, and it's kind of a crazy role. Do you think there's any chance that Disney could convince him to be in this TV series?
I think Kilmer would be game, but I know he's also been ill in recent years, which is a shame. So I would hope they could get him back. I think that late period Val Kilmer has been untapped, fountain of potential that a lot of films have not made full use of. But I'm just hoping that he gets to act at all, continuing because of recent health scares. So fingers crossed that we get to see him at all in this.
Okay, from Disney streaming service to another streaming service, YouTube Premium. YouTube has announced that they have ordered a season 3 of Cobra Kai, which makes me excited. Chris, what do we know?
Yes, Cobra Kai, the only show Peter watches, has just been renewed for a 3rd season on YouTube. And it's clearly their biggest hit. YouTube was trying to get in on the streaming game with, first it was called YouTube Red, and they changed it to YouTube Premium. And they had all these shows, and then they pretty much canceled almost all of them. And not only are they giving Cobra Kai a 3rd season, they're also making the decision to make YouTube Premium free with ads now. So instead of having to subscribe to it, you'll be able to watch it just with commercials. And it really just seems like, other than Cobra Kai, this YouTube Premium experiment has been a bit of a failure. But at least fans got this out of it because, like Peter, people seem to really like this show.
What I think's exciting here is this series. I mean, I've said on this podcast before, it was one of my 2 favorite pieces of content that I watched last year in all of movies and TV. And season 2 is not as good as season 1, but it's still very good. And I'm excited that now YouTube Premium's like original content is going to become free for everybody to enjoy. And maybe some of the other Slash Film staff will finally get a chance to check out Cobra Kai and verify that I'm not nuts and that the show is actually pretty good.
Maybe. Stranger things have happened. I still haven't seen the movie, so I have to watch the Karate Kid movie first.
Chris, I watched Karate Kid maybe 6 months ago for the first time, thinking it would be like a hokey thing that maybe I'd enjoy like as a guilty pleasure. But I was surprised. It's actually a genuinely good movie. So I think it holds up. I think it's streamed on Amazon Prime. At least it was when I watched it.
Is it as good as the movie Sidekicks with Jonathan Brandis and Chuck Norris? Because I've seen that.
I'd say it's about half as good as that, Chris.
Okay.
I don't know. Pat Morita was actually nominated for an Academy Award for Karate Kid. A lot of people forget that. It actually. What were you gonna say, Jacob?
It's a good performance. It really is.
Yeah. So anyways, hopefully people will be jumping on the Cobra Kai bandwagon as it moves into its 3rd season. Let's talk about something that's kind of unprecedented. I don't think I can think of another occurrence of this ever happening, but Sonic the Hedgehog, the trailer came out. Fans were upset over the look of Sonic in this trailer, and I guess the director, because of that, the director and the studio has decided to appease the fans and redesign Sonic? Jacob, what do we know?
Yeah, this is a deeply odd story. It broke late yesterday as we were all trying to leave work. But Jeff Fowler, the director of Sonic the Hedgehog, tweeted, "Thank you for the support and the criticism. The message is loud and clear. You aren't happy with the design and you want changes. It's going to happen. Everyone at Paramount and Sega are fully committed to making the character the best he can be." And if you were on Twitter since that Sonic trailer arrived, you saw all the memes. You saw all of the people like freaking out about how weird Sonic looks. Like his sneakers are like regular-looking sneakers. They have like the size they are in the games, which is like a little too big in a cute way. He no longer has like those like iconic white gloves. He now has white fur in his hands. His like large cartoon eyes have become these beady human eyes. He has weird human teeth, and he looks genuinely unpleasant. Like looking at him is a nightmare. It's a bad design, and I don't know where the design came from. I'm not going to pretend to know what concessions were made, who pushed what to make this character design go through, but it doesn't look like Sonic. It looks like a genuinely unpleasant, like, you know how when they say like, here's an artist drawing what Homer Simpson would look like in real life, and it's really gross looking. That's what the Sonic looked like. And apparently they're going to have to start paying a lot of overtime to visual effects artists because they're going to be redoing it completely for the movie. And I'm not a big Sonic fan, but in the book Console Wars, which I've talked about on this podcast before, there's an entire chapter dedicated to how Sega of America helped redesign the Sonic character when that game was coming out for Sega Genesis in the early 90s, and how they looked to Mickey Mouse as an inspiration for how to design an appealing animal character. And the thing is, all the changes that they emphasize in that book for like how important it is for Sonic to look to like grab people's hearts are things that were jettisoned for this redesign. So I think a back to the basics approach is necessary to make sure Sonic doesn't creep people out. But what do you guys think?
I mean, they took all the style out of him. They took like that kind of anime inspired, like the legs and everything. And he just looks like they were like, we need Sonic to look like he exists in this reality. And you know what? I don't think people care about that. It's sad that all these visual effects people are all these animators are gonna, not see their families and be working overtime to fix this. And there's no way this movie's going to be good. Like, it looks horrible. Chris, do you have any thoughts?
It's just the fact that this is happening at all is crazy. That, I can't even imagine how much money Paramount is dropping just to get this quote unquote right. And it should have never gotten this far to begin with. I mean, whatever you think of, I haven't seen it yet, but whatever you think of the movie Detective Pikachu, like based on the trailers and the footage we've seen of that, that's how you should be doing that sort of design. If you have to bring a video game character to life, just look at that film because it looks right. Like, it doesn't look real, but it looks right. That's like the best way I can describe it. And this Sonic film does not look like that. It just looks really, first of all, it looks really cheap to begin with. Like, it looks like they spent no money on this, which I know is not true. So I don't know what's up with that. But at the same time, it's like, sure, they can make Sonic look better, but I really don't think that's going to fix the movie based on the trailer, which just looks really bad. So maybe they should spend more money on the script. I don't know.
How much fan outrage is it going to take for them to have to fix Jim Carrey's performance as Dr. Robotnik?
I don't know. With all due respect to Sonic fans, Sonic fandom is deeply bizarre and deeply committed to a character who has not had a good game in about 20 years. So I don't know. Like, this outrage over the Sonic design did not surprise me, but I'll say the lack of outrage over Jim Carrey dominating that trailer by acting like it's 1998 again did surprise me. So who knows?
And what happens if they unveil the design and everyone hates the redesign? Are they going to do it again? How far is this going to go? I almost want this to just keep going on. All right, we're going to redo it again. They just keep redoing it and the movie never comes out.
This is also a very dangerous door to open because once this happens with one film property, fans now think that this is something that's possible with anything. Do you know what I mean? They already believe that they can sign a petition and get them to remake The Last Jedi. So, I mean, now I guess those people are justified in some way?
Oh, God, that's... Oh, man,
upsetting, yeah.
At least Last Jedi was divisive. I feel like every single person in the world, Sonic fan or not, looked at the new design and cringed. So it just makes me wonder what conversations were happening behind the scenes, because it's easy to laugh off the Last Jedi petition because it's so stupid. But the reaction was universal on Sonic, and like I said, even my wife, who hasn't played a Sonic game since the '90s, I showed her the picture, and she gagged when she saw it. It was very upset by it.
It's just weird because I I'm wondering, like, film is an art, and I understand it's also a business. They're not making a Sonic live action movie for the art of it. They're there to make money. But at what point does it become when the artist is changing his vision of the movie to appease fans? So, like, when it just feels like that's just gonna muffle. It's just gonna become less of a distinct vision here. Like imagine if I remember when the first photos of the X-Men, Bryan Singer's X-Men, got leaked online on Ain't It Cool News, and fans threw a hissy fit over that. Imagine if Bryan Singer was like, okay, we're going to go back and reshoot this with, more traditional design. Like, it just feels like that would generally lead to a worse movie.
Yeah, like I don't see this becoming the norm. Like a great recent example is, I remember when they released the first images of the new Pennywise from It. Almost everyone was like, "Oh, that looks terrible," and then it turned out to be great in context of the movie. Like, everyone ended up loving it. So there has to be some give or take here. That said, the Sonic design was actually scarier than the Pennywise design. So I really don't know. I don't know where that line is.
Let's move on to Mission Impossible. Writer and director Christopher McQuarrie recently made some comments about the upcoming Mission Impossible 7 and 8. He says that those films need to, quote, swallow the last 3 movies whole. Chris, you wrote this up for the site. What does that even mean? Yeah,
Christopher McQuarrie did an interview with Empire, and that quote basically boils down to him. He says, let me find the quote here. The actual quote is, "I'm freaked out now." So what he's saying here is, it's dawning on him that he's has this very daunting task now, because he's been involved with the last 3 Mission Impossible movies. Each film, progressively gets crazier and more exciting and more thrilling. And now, not only is he making the next film, he's making the next 2 films back to back. And it's sort of dawning on him that he has to, really top himself. He has to top what he's done 3 times in a row here now and make something even bigger and crazier and do it twice. And so it just sounds like he's having like an existential crisis, basically, where it's dawning on him that this is going to be a very daunting task. But I have faith in him, just because I think he's a great writer. He's a really good filmmaker. And if anyone can do this, I'm pretty sure it's him.
How do you do this, though? Like, I feel like Tom Cruise, or more likely the character Ethan Hunt, has to die.
No, don't even say such things, Peter. I'm upset you would even suggest that. Only if he comes back from the dead. That's like, he should die at the end of Mission Impossible 7.
So they're going to pull an Infinity War?
Yeah, they should. Exactly. And then he comes back somehow in 8. That's the only thing I'll accept.
Chris, what if the last shot of Mission Impossible 7 is Ethan Hunt falling to his death, and we see his body on the pavement, and the opening shot of 8 are the paddles hitting his chest and him waking up and getting into a fight?
Exactly. That'd be great. They don't even need you explain it that much. Just like, oh, he's back. And I'd be like, this is great. I love these movies.
Yeah, I don't know what they can do in these last 2 movies. I feel like they've done almost everything, and I don't know what kind of stunt Tom Cruise can put himself in that is going to top everything he's done in this franchise thus far. Jacob, do you have any thoughts?
My original joke was, of course, go to space, give Elon Musk a couple $1 million to put Tom Cruise on a rocket. But I think I think Chris McQuarrie actually shoots down space, like, even jokingly in this article. So I don't know. I just feel like you got to just find another tall building, handcuff Tom Cruise's feet to his legs, throw him off, and hope he survives.
Okay, let's talk about one last story. Let's talk about Sinemia. This is something I was at an Avengers Endgame screening on Thursday night, leaving that screening with someone who had paid for a year subscription to Sinemia, and I had to inform them that the service had officially faltered, had officially shut down. Sinemia is dead, while somehow MoviePass lives on. Chris, what do we know?
Yeah, we all thought at this point that MoviePass would be gone, but somehow MoviePass still clings to life support. Whereas Sinemia has flatlined. There's been rumblings that this was going to happen for a few weeks now. Sinemia has been in legal trouble because there's a class action lawsuit against them about bumping up their prices unwarned. And they seem to have had the same problem that MoviePass had, and that they couldn't find a way to make this movie subscription service profitable. And it's at the point now where they've just fully pulled the plug. They're not even trying anymore, and the days of Sinemia are gone. That said, there is still room for the movie subscription service business. The AMC's A-List is doing really well. The Draft House is going to come out with their own. So there's some sort of secret formula that some people have figured out to make this work, but people like Sinemia and MoviePass can't quite nail it down, even though, again, MoviePass is still around in a shadow of its former self.
Yeah, I think that secret formula is having the cooperation of the movie theater exhibitors.
Yeah, that's probably a good point. Yeah, that would definitely help.
Jacob, any thoughts on Sinemia?
Sinemia still sounds like a skin condition.
Okay, we're going to end it there. Jacob, where can we find more of your work online?
/film.com every single day. And if you like Game of Thrones, we have a big week of Game of Thrones coverage for you next week. So buckle down. It'll be very exciting.
Chris, where can we find you?
/film.com every day. And I'm on Twitter at CEvangelista413.
You can find me at /film on all social media. You can find all the stories we talked about today on /film.com and linked in the show notes. /film Daily is published every weekday on iTunes, Google, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. Please feel free to send us your feedback, questions, comments, concerns to us at peter@/film.com. And please go and rate and review this podcast on iTunes. Tell your friends. Spread the word. And we will see you on Monday.